Usher asks, one of the biggest talking points I hear about the Suns, besides defense, is who is going to orchestrate the offense. Why does it seem like there isn't a ton of faith in Point Book being a success? Is it small sample size, and because he had a true point guard next to him? Is there any evidence stats that can help us make inference whether Point Book will or will not succeed? Love the show as always. There's kind of a second part to this question too, but let's just actually, we should probably enter the second part first. And so Usher also asks, do you need to have a true point guard to have an elite offense? And the answer is no, just because the definition of point guard has changed, just as we're kind of moving away from positions. Like, as long as you have a quarterback, these initiators who, even if they're not the most talented passers, if they can at least react to the attention that they're getting, or just generate and hit really difficult looks for themselves. Like, if you took take Luka Doncic as an example and remove the passing elements of his game. Like, take it from he's like a 15 out of 10 on a scale of 1 to 10, move it down to like a 5. But just because he can score at every level and efficiently and hit these tough looks, he could be the driver of an offense. And now we kind of saw it with the Clippers last year, where their offense spent a lot of time in the gutter, but when they played with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, who are good secondary initiators, but they're not Luka, they're not James Harden, like the bigger point guards who maybe, in James Harden's case, didn't even start out as a point guard in his career. They're not like these A passers. So you put Paul George and Kawhi Leonard on the floor. You take off any minutes that could have been with Russ Wall or Reggie Jackson. And I know that the tenures there didn't necessarily overlap, but you want to remove any of the minutes that had either one of those three on the court with PG and Kawhi. The Clippers still ranked in the 99th percentile of offense during that span. The sample size was not like massive, again, because Paul George and Kawhi Leonard didn't play in a shit ton of games, but like, you can get by just having elite offensive players who aren't necessarily elite point guards. And by that, I mean, not necessarily coming down to the size or the position, but when looking at the passing, the table setting ability, is that you can get by having two B plus passers if those guys are also, of course, A minus defenders. But if they're A plus, scores, that goes a long way as well. And I'm not talking ball stoppers. Like, you want someone who is going to be, I would say, better than a Julius Randle type passer. And I would throw Kawhi and Paul George. I'd probably at least trust them more, and it feels like they can score at different levels. So you can build an offense that way, which is why I don't necessarily get the concern with the Suns. To Let's focus on the Booker element of this for a minute, because part of it probably has to do with Booker, where I don't think maybe, the sample size has not been huge. He logged as the official point guard last year, only 106 possessions. The Suns offense was in the 99th percentile. That's like it's just such a small sample size. So you're not really seeing it, but they're also like, you dig deeper and you see minutes, and like, so he did play without CP3 or Payne on the floor, about 530 possessions. The Suns offense was also in the 99th percentile during that stretch. So he's been on the court where he is the primary playmaker or is close to it. But I just think because he played next to CP3 specifically, he's never been viewed in that vein. And it's really weird because we're talking about, I don't know where I would rank him when it comes to passers in the league, but like, he is one of the most complete offensive players in the game right now, bar none. He is a more complete offensive player than Bradley Beal, just because you can look at his off-ball movement. And like, while Kevin Durant might even have the higher ceiling, when you look at what Booker's able to do as he like moves around off the ball, and I'm talking like if he needs to hit, those quick fire jumpers, or if he's putting pressure on the rim because of his off-ball movement. But you're looking at also the way he runs an offense as a passer. Like, yeah, Kevin Durant is, again, one of the greatest players of all time, better than Devin Booker in theory. Although we did just see a postseason where Devin Booker spent most of the time as the Suns' best player, even though Kevin Durant was on the floor. His passing, it is improved probably each and every season, some by larger margins than others, but he's gotten so good that just like, you're going to see more incremental improvements here. And he can throw really difficult lobs, really difficult pocket passes, really difficult skip passes. He'll take chances in the full court. We've seen, I can't remember, there's like 2 passes that he threw to Mikal Bridges in transition. I don't think it was this season. It might have been like last playoffs. I don't even fucking remember, but they're just like these like whip it bounce passes across the entire court, like from one end to the other through the defense, like threading the needle. there are fewer than 10 guys who can throw that type of a pass, and Devin Booker is one of them right now. I do think he can telegraph some of his reads, especially when he's looking for big men. He can become really like zeroed in on it, but he just throws the ball through traffic so well, or uses the right height and different angles, because it's not just a chest pass or a lob, or a bounce pass or just a basic pocket pass. Like he can do all like make all these different types of passes. So he's a more versatile passer and also does it while he's under control. And so looking at the past 6 years, which is when 2017, 2018, that's when he really started to ratchet up his playmaking and his on ball skills. He has had an assist rate over 26 and under 13 of everyone who has logged at least 10,000 minutes during this span. And that's still less than 2,000 minutes a season. It wasn't just some arbitrary number. I thought 10,000 was okay. These guys have played a bunch, but who has also hit those benchmarks? An assist rate over 26 and turnover rate under 13. The only other players to join Booker are Damian Lillard, Fred VanVleet, Spencer Dinwiddie, DeJounte Murray, Steph Curry, and Kyrie Irving. I should have double checked. This is weird that LeBron is not on here, right? He is not. I just want to make sure that he's not in there. That's like legit company. And we're talking about, I know Murray kind of moved to more of an off guard role, and Fred VanVleet has always played off the ball a ton. Say what you want about Steph Curry, but like those are what people would consider more, definitely more sort of conventional point guards. No, there's nothing conventional about Steph and Dame and Kyrie, yada yada yada. But relative to what Devin Booker is, yeah, they would definitely be considered more conventional points. And Devin Booker's part of that company. Now, am I going to be interested to see what happens if, I don't think they'll spam it the way they did with CP3. But Devin Booker, by and large through the seasons, we've seen pick and roll initiation account for like 25% to 30% of his possessions. I think there might have been a season or two where he was over. If you really like juice that up, jack it up to 35%, 40%, 45%, or really spam him as a pick and roll initiator, does that change? And I do think part of the benefit of what makes him such a good passer is because he's able to focus on scoring more, if at worst equally there. Does that dynamic change at all? I know the Suns named Bradley Beal their point guard. That's more of just a size thing there to me, because Devin Booker is the best passer on this team, better than Durant, better than Beal. So I'm curious to see how he holds up in a role that's going to really call for him to do it more. I think he's going to thrive, honestly. Like maybe the scoring comes down, but we might see him average like, I don't know if he's a 10 assist guy, and like the way they might run their offense, just because you have Beal and Durant, there's going to be so much equity like divested among all three of them. And then also just like, is this going to be even an assist heavy team? So I don't want to throw it there, but like, I'm not saying he's going to be the next Luka or James Harden when you're racking up these assist numbers, but like this is going to be a year where I think he probably has a bunch of double digit assist games, or that we could see him average like 8 or 9 per game, because I think I trust his passing that much. And I would fully expect the Suns offense to still be elite. And I don't think they need to be a great passing team because they have these 3 top end scorers. When it comes to the Suns, as Usher mentioned, it is more about, okay, what does it look like with their defense? Aiton's going to be a huge part of that. How does their depth pan out in the sense, yeah, they really won the minimum contract game, but we always say that about certain teams, and how many of those do they actually hit on? More to the point, does their big 3 stay healthy enough to where like you don't have to rely too heavily on that depth and on that minimum contract depth? And so those are all big and fair questions. The offense itself is just not a question. This team is, regardless of how they get their buckets, even if I've just overestimated Devin Booker's passing to the upteenth degree, this team is going to be, if they're not a top 5 offense, something seriously, I would imagine, has gone wrong. Someone is having the worst season of their career. There's been a bunch of injuries, some combination of all 3. You just look at these guys. I think that they're built, you could see the Suns getting a little bit too mid-range happy last year. I think that Devin Booker's going to be able to adapt his game. He's just one of the most scalable players in the league. 2, Bradley Beal changes the scoring distribution for this team, where I think he can put more pressure on the actual basket. And even if he's living too much from the mid-range of points, he's still going to be able to get to the foul line. And I think he's someone who will be comfortable, like kind of not like titrating up his 3-point volume as well. Durant has always been sort of iffy there. So this team is going to be great. And Devin Booker, again, one of the most complete offensive players in the game. And so calling him the de facto, let's call it a floor general. Let's not even call it a point guard. If that's what he has to be, if there is going to be more responsibility than even we think right now is going to be put on his shoulders, the Suns are going to be more than fine. And I cannot bring myself to worry about offense at all with this team, regular season, playoffs, whatever.